Hello, witches. I thought I would do the Moontime magic tag today. Jessica, the story witch, really kindly tagged me in it, and the Angry Alchemist began it. I have strong feelings, as some of you may know, about the positive elements, blood magic, and being in connection with our own cycles can really bring to a witch, because we're experiencing our craft through this body on this earth. And menstruation is a big part of our lives as women, but also the men living alongside us as well. Our responses might be different. For example, our energy levels might be different. It's if a man is with you and you're looking to have children, then they're experiencing your cycles through that as well. The feeling of needing to try again, of the body still clearing. And it doesn't always have to be a negative thing. That it might be that they experience it the other way around, and actually you weren't ready to have children and you're both celebrating that your periods come. But even in small things, for example, being slightly more clumsy, that's a good example of how we respond differently to the world around us when we're on or about to come on, perhaps. So the first question is, how can you tell your moon is, or your moon time is coming? Now, for me, one of my biggest tells can be mood change. So feeling low or feeling numb, which is often an element of my lowness. And I've talked before about how I have bipolar. And, I really find that my mood can be a big tell of a lot of things, actually. But, this numbness is a big part. And it can really help, I think, to recognize that this is a hormonal experience rather than blaming it on yourself, or perhaps thinking that you can't deal with things, when actually you're just experiencing a hormonal shift, and you kind of have to move through that and find ways that you can help your own body to deal with it, because it's probably something I've mentioned before within the mental health kind of idea of things, but I follow the biological model of mental health a lot. And if you look into it, it's very clear that the chemicals produced in the body really do affect the mind, to the extent of if someone had taken an outside drug, for example, cocaine or speed, maybe, and it can go the other way as well with depression, where the lowness is still the chemicals, causing that. So I think it is very important to recognize that we can help our body to, number one, balance those chemicals, which is a big thing for me in my moon time anyway, balance. But also to, reassure ourselves that this is a normal thing for us, and that it will pass. So I also experienced a slight appetite increase a couple of days before. I really noticed that about a week before, I get much more water retention, and I end up drinking a lot more nettle and dandelion tea. And I also get quite tender, enlarged breasts for me. I don't have massive boobs anyway, but so I think maybe I notice it even more. I also get cramps. So my cramps are in my thighs, my lower stomach, my back, and sometimes even just under the underside of my breasts can cramp a little bit. Now, I I don't know what anyone else's experience of this is, but I have personally noticed that my labour pains were almost like a really intense experience of my period pains, and I found that really fascinating, because I thought that it's like the body is warning you, or giving you a preparation of what is to come with labour. And I had wondered about it before giving birth, and my birth was very intense, as I've mentioned before, very, very fast. It was about half an hour, final stage, first birth. So, and that's not a good thing. Anyone out there think it's a good thing? It's not a good thing. Just different issues to a long birth. But anyway, it's very interesting that when I was in labour, my contractions went all the way down to my knees, and all the way up to the underside of my boobs, and all the way across my back and stomach. So it was very much just an amplified experience of my period, a very amplified one. But leading on to coping, interestingly, the when a paramedic arrived, I was about to deliver the head, which no one realised, including me, because it was my first birth. And she was rubbing my back, and it felt really nice. And I have noticed that with cramps in general, during my Moontime, rubbing can really, really help. And that kind of leads on to a later question with kind of aromatherapy stuff. But, you know, massaging and rubbing can be a really, really good pain reliever. And I will mention here as well the pinching between the thumb and finger. So you're literally pinching that area, and if you can find the right pressure point on yourself, you can look it up. There's information out there, but it can really, really help with relieving cramps instantly. So for example, if you're in a meeting, or you are at a mum and baby group, or even out with a friend, you know, and you suddenly get it and you think that you're not really coping with it, then you can just do that quite subtly under the table, which is really useful, and it's like a quick pain reliever. It doesn't last once you've let go, really, at least for me it doesn't, but yeah, it does really help at the time. So leading on from that, the next question is, how do you cope with bleeding? Which physically we've kind of answered a little bit, but there'll be more coming up. What products do you use, and how do you use them? So I tend to use these, which are the heartfelt pads, and they've got this fleece in a bit here. They don't have inserts, which I find really useful, because having done cloth nappies, just the amount of stuff and different bits and different bobs. So I went for this, nice and simple all together. There, on other reviews, people have said that they move around. Now I haven't found that. However, I do tend to wear tights a lot, because I wear a lot of skirts and dresses, so that could be kind of contributing to holding it in place, perhaps. And yeah, I do find that with these, it can be quite useful to wash them with essential oils in the wash, just because the smell and antiseptic kind of properties of the essential oils can really benefit the pads, I feel, anyway, just because I don't think you're ever going to completely get rid of the smell, if you know what I mean. Like, if you've ever used cloth nappies, you'll know that, I don't know, it's very difficult to completely get rid of a smell. And obviously they are unperfumed, so adding that essential oil yourself can be really good. But as I say, if I do it in the wash, I don't find it irritating at all. And I tend to use thyme, because it can really help with the antiseptic properties, and it is quite a good and strong antiseptic. So yeah, that's just a little tip, really. Now, I find them really, like, I've never had leaks with them, and I've never found it difficult to hide them, if you see what I mean. So I think they're really good for me anyway. I do also have a moon cup, which I think I don't use it as much because I can find things inside me quite irritating. But it's this one. I find that you can get very slight leaks, and again, if you're concerned about that, you can just use a cloth pad underneath the moon cup. But I always found tampons before I made the switch and became more aware of like the effect it was having on the planet, basically. I found those quite annoying, yeah, tampons. So the moon cup, I think, is a really useful way of collecting your own blood if you want to use it in ritual, for magic, anything like that. It can be a very useful way of collecting it. And in my other video of blood magic, I do go into other ways that you can use menstrual blood within a ritual or spell situation. Sorry, I'm just gonna have a quick drink. Sorry about that. So, do I meditate, and does my meditation routine change during Moontime? Well, meditation for me is a difficult thing to put your finger on, really. Because I have chronic illnesses, I often struggle with energy, and often other things will get put over meditation. However, I do sometimes meditate in the bath. I do a lot of deep thinking rather than which kind of happens at moments during the day, if you know what I mean, like naturally occurs, rather than being a pre-planned thing. If I'm dealing with a big issue, I may, if my husband's willing to put my son to bed, then I can have some time then to think about it. But for me, I do guided meditations occasionally. I do, yeah, I mean, I would say that my meditation practice changing, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, I think every cycle is different anyway for menstruation, for Moontime. So I would say I potentially meditate slightly more. Perhaps as a later thing with the rituals, I would often, depending on how I feel, I might journey. However, if I'm feeling low on energy and not able to really hold those protections in place, then I probably wouldn't. But I'll go into that later. But with meditation alone, journaling probably more than meditation, I think, and potentially slightly more depending on the cycle than normal. Right, moving on to what are your favourite teas and foods during Moontime? So, I make a ginger and rose tea with nettle and cinnamon, and what I do is I make a ginger decoction. So I cut up some ginger root, put it with a saucepan full of water, in a saucepan full of water on the stove, bring it to the boil and then simmer it for about 30 minutes. I then will turn it off and add the rose, the cinnamon and the nettle, and allow that to sit, and then I would strain it, and that can really help, I feel, with it helps with cramps. I also think it helps with the mood issues, and with I added nettle because of the clearing aspect and the cleansing aspect of nettle, where it helps you to clear out and I really feel like the body can often benefit from that support in that area. When you're already working, you know, your body's already working to release and clear out the womb lining, I think it can really benefit from some support in other areas, just to make sure that they're all kind of tickety-boo with their own cleansing as well. So other teas and foods, you wouldn't really count it as, oh, you could take it as a tea, but willow bark, which can be really helpful for cramps again, and cramp bark too can be really helpful. So willow bark is essentially nature's aspirin. So with any of these things, you want to look up whether or not you would be able to take it. It's obviously that isn't recommended with and like with anti-inflammatories like naproxen or ibuprofen, but it can be really, really beneficial for menstrual pain. Cramp bark again. Hawthorn also really good for the blood system in general, really, and the heart. I think I would say that with hawthorn it can often be, well, with a lot of herbs it's often better over a longer period of time. But for example, with like ginger, it might bring some beneficial kind of anti-cramp, what's the word? Anyway, antispasmodic effects kind of straight away. Whereas I would say that often you might want to take hawthorn for slightly longer to see those effects. And all herbs, really, you know, you might take over 2 to 3 months and expect to see the effects at the end of them. So if you're going to start a herbal program relating to your Moontime, then it can be really beneficial just to look up, you know, how long the effects take, and really give it that time, because a lot of people will go into using a herb and after a few weeks they think, oh, this isn't working. But you know, if you do carry on, you often do see very beneficial effects. Yes, so lemon balm, very helpful for mood, just lifting that mood a little bit, and I use lemon balm quite regularly anyway. Same with passion flower as well, and having passion flower as a sleep tea can be really lovely in your Moontime. It's a, you know, they have beneficial nerve effects on the nerves, and that can be really, really good, because I find that my nerves can get quite jangled when I am on, and I also have chronic nerve problems, so for me, disruption to my nervous system isn't the nicest thing. Ashwagandha as well, very, very good to really help support your body, you know, good for all sorts of systems really, but the endocrine system, the just really getting some strength up, I think, as well. If you lack vitality during menstruation, then ashwagandha can be really helpful for that, in my experience anyway. So yes, my last point on teas and foods is really just listen to what your body is saying and try and work out why it is saying it. So if it is asking you to drink a certain tea, then experiment with drinking that tea and seeing if it helps. Or if you're about to drink a tea and it's saying kind of no, don't have that, but you're really craving something else, try it and, you know, see if the something else you're craving actually does what you were looking for anyway. Because I think often as well with the cyclic pathway that a woman's body takes each month, and each month that cyclic pathway being different, it can be really useful to just be in tune with what your body's asking for at that moment, because it might be very different to your last month. So aromatherapy, oils and incense. Right, so I I use chamomile, lavender and rose quite a lot as incense. I also use rose as oil and clove oil. With clove, I am very careful to wash it off my hands after because of my cats, because obviously it's bad for animals, and if they get it on their fur it can have really detrimental effects. But yeah, so clove oil, really good for menstrual cramps again. I find rose can be a very uplifting and sensual experience, can really help to make it sacred. As incense, frankincense can also help to just make it feel a very sacred time for you. So a rose and frankincense mixture can be really lovely for that. If you were planning on doing a red tent kind of idea, or if you just want to make the time feel sacred, even if you're going about doing your normal activities, then I really recommend that as an incense. Lemon balm, of course. Violet is a very special flower to me, and I really associate it with that kind of dark moontime feeling, and for introspection. And I think burning it during some divination or some meditation can be really lovely. Lots of people might find that they get a foggy brain during menstruation or just before it, and I find sandalwood incense can be really beneficial for that for me. Now copal and gum de mar, that's one I use to bring balance and raise my mood. If I'm feeling in that dark space, sometimes I might be getting too dark and just need to kind of balance myself out a little bit. Can you tell I'm a Libran? Who would have guessed it? I might add evening primrose to the copal and gum de mar as well. And I know that some people might not associate evening primrose with menstruation and the dark moon, but I really do. I think it's possibly to do with more the idea of cycles and clearing the way. And I think, you know, as you menstruate, you are literally clearing the way. And I think evening primrose for me really has that connotation, particularly because just before labour I used it to help clear the way for my son to be born. So I think, you know, that really ties in. Now, raspberry would be something that I might use as an incense. Also, actually, that would be a tea I would use during my moontime. Red raspberry leaf tea, really brilliant. Thyme, which I've also included on the teas, but you can, I don't know, with thyme it definitely helps with the cramps. It's nice as an incense in some ways, and sometimes I've bathed, had a thyme bath. As a tea, it's kind of 2 cups a day, 1 teaspoonful, and that can really help in some ways, and I think it helps me to feel more grounded, certainly. Right, so favourite crystals weren't included, but I'm going to include some. So Annabelle is, of course, my crystal ball. She is definitely something that I feel very close to at my moontime. Rose quartz, pretty famous. Moonstone, again, names kind of says it all. Selenite would be another one for me, I think. Although selenite could be linked to the full moon, in many ways, again, it's that balance, isn't it? And I think it can also help with the dreams that some people get during menstruation and finding your way through that kind of tangled, shadowy web. So do I have any rituals or special activities? For me, the cycler element means that it does change quite often. However, I would say giving my blood back to the earth is a ritual that I would normally do. Watering the plants with my blood occasionally, and consulting the cards, which actually, this is really ironic, but I've been working with the herbal healing deck, and I consulted it the other day just to give me, I think it was the day I started, just to give me an idea of, you know, what to focus on that day and everything. And this is proof that cards can really have a sense of humour. Yes, below. So, I plan to, when I'm looking to have another child, take some of the blood and use it in fertility magic. And I think I go more into that in another video, so feel free to go and watch that. I might link it down below. Personal. Oh, how do I feel about or incorporate blood magic? Well, I guess that kind of is my special activity. I don't know if I have any other rituals. I don't have time often for regular rituals if I want to also make space for performing spells. So I would say that the blood magic is often my ritual. I guess herbal baths might be a ritual that I would do that isn't blood magic, and obviously the cards. But yeah, I mean, I feel positively about blood magic. I think it's a big part of witchcraft over, you know, right back to the beginning. I absolutely incorporate it. So, what are my personal correspondences for Moontime? Well, you've heard some of my crystal correspondences. I think I would say that rose, violet, night blooming, jasmine, datura, geranium phaeum, or black widow as it's known, passion flower, belladonna, evening primrose. Those are kind of plant ones. Oh, raspberry and weeping willow trees as well. The weeping willow is just, I guess, connected to that water element. And I think, you know, I also connect it to the sea and caves and the dark moon, and so the weeping willow kind of comes into that. But I also associate the weeping willow with the full moon, so again, it's that balancing, I guess. For balance, I would say that lemon balm, chamomile, and ginger and dandelion. Although in some ways, sorry, one moment. Although in some ways those could be related to more sunny aspects of magic and the cycle, I think that they can also be brilliant to just pull you up from the darkness and perhaps level things out, really. I mean, dandelion as a root, of course, could be, I see it as more masculine, so I guess, again, it's still adding that leveling up, that balance. I would connect it to ancestor work. I think it corresponds with introspection, with certain dances, the kind of unplanned dancing at night alone, that sort of thing, where you're really learning how your body is moving. And I do urge people actually to take note of how their body changes, how their movement changes, and how they feel in their movement, as well as, you know, comparatively during their cycle. I associate it with cleansing and clearing, with and therefore I guess preparing for new beginnings as well, because you know your body is literally ending one thing in order to start another. And I think in that way as well, I see it kind of as linked to the crossroads, because there's decisions that your body's making, there's decisions that you can make as well. So, you know, it might be that you're making the decision to have children on your next cycle or to not. It might be that you are making the decision, you know, your body's making the decision to go into the menopause. There's quite a lot of different things that play into it, but I really do see the crossroads as linked to it. Seeking balance, I think, is a very important link to it, because I suppose perhaps because of the cleansing and clearing, which is balanced out by the new beginnings, that's an initial one, but also the balancing of the hormones that you're seeking and your body's trying to, you know, get back to a balance. Releasing, of course. And yeah, I think ancestor work as well would probably be something that I would link it to, because it's often nice, even actually seeking guidance from other women. So women coming together, female solidarity, I think, which in some ways you could link to revolution, couldn't you? And I think that actually often revolution clears the way for new beginnings. So in that way, revolution is a correspondence to menstruation for me. Right, I hope that you've enjoyed that, guys. Love you very much, and I will see you next time. Mwah.